Ladies and gentlemen, the following podcast is set for one episode. Your host from Columbus, Ohio, is Michael Kirk. Welcome to the Outlaw Mudcast. Hello and welcome to the Outlaw Mudcast, your digital audio dirt sheet for all things Supershow. Top story this week, new 2020 Vision update. 2020 Vision is what SRG Universe calls essentially looking at competitors in hindsight and saying, well, since these have been released, we've decided that they don't work the way we want them to. The game balance is not there, and so we need to make adjustments to cards, whether those are competitor sets, finishes, cards 1 through 30. We need to make adjustments to them to bring them more in line with what should be an appropriate power level for the game. 19 competitors were changed in the 2023 update for 2020 Vision. All of these are competitor cards, specifically gimmicks. There were no cards 1 through 30. There were no finishes. These were all changes to competitors. 19 competitors were changed in total, and that's including one competitor, the Mad One, being split into two competitors. So let's go ahead and start with the Mad One. The original single competitor, the Mad One, was a flip competitor. On the first side, it read as follows. During your turn, if you roll all 6 skills for your turn rolls, you may choose an opponent. They randomly discard half their hand, in parentheses, rounded up, parentheses closed, then turn this card over. The other side said, once it had been flipped, your opponent's maximum hand size is halved, rounded down. Meaning if your opponent's maximum hand size was 9, it would go down to 4. That's what they mean when they say rounded down. So this competitor was split into a singles version and a tornado tag version. The singles version is no longer a flip competitor. The gimmick on the front is the only gimmick. The gimmick on the first side is the only gimmick for the Mad One. The new language is this. Once per match, during your turn, if you rolled all 6 skills for your turn roll, your opponent randomly discards half their hand, rounded up. If you weren't familiar with the Mad One's gimmick, in the game, each competitor card has 6 skills on it: power, technique, agility, strike, submission, grapple. Over the course of the match, as you roll for turn rolls, you would record which skill you rolled when you're playing the Mad One. Once you have rolled all 6, during your turn, and you as the Mad One choose when to activate this, you can say to your opponent, all right, you're going to randomly discard half the cards in your hand. Before you flipped it over afterwards, now there's no flip. Once you have used that gimmick is done for the remainder of the game. Singles-wise, I still think this is a good competitor. First off, the Mad One always had great finish cards. The strike finish gives you +1 to all of your skills, and if you have rolled all 6 skills for your turn rolls, those are doubled. Now, you don't have to activate your gimmick. You just have to have met the same conditions you would need to meet to activate your gimmick for that to be live. That's still a great strike finish. The grapple finish blanks your opponent's gimmick and makes your opponent discard cards from their hand equal to the crowd meter +1. That's good. And then the submission finish has a spotlight effect. When it's in the discard pile, you choose an opponent they cannot move cards from their discard pile to their hand. So he has great finishes. His gimmick is not as good because it doesn't have that backside anymore, it doesn't have that other flip. But still being able to, when you think it's best for you, make your opponent discard half their hand, that's still pretty strong. So the Mad One, not as good as it was, but I still think it's a pretty good competitor. The other part of the Mad One is that the second half, the backside, the side that got flipped to, that became its own tornado tag team card. The Mad One snapped. It doubled all the skill values. The gimmick is your opponent's maximum hand size is halved, rounded down. Meaning in a standard singles match, the hand size is 10, you round that down to 5. If they were using the Director of Operations entrance cards, they had +2 to their hand size, so they had a 12. It gets rounded down to 6. That's how that gimmick works. That's still a good gimmick too. Again, the finishers, I still think they're good. Again, the bonuses are created for singles, not for tag. But I still think we'll see Mad One play, as often as we did before. I don't think this is going to take the Mad One out of circulation. He's not as good, but I still think he's a decent competitor. The other competitor that was made a tornado tag was Mila Mai. And we're talking about the original Mila Mai, not the new version. This is the version that has the gimmick once during your turn. You may discard a lead you have in play, and your next turn roll is +1. If you lose the next roll, shuffle one card from your discard pile into your deck. So the change here is they've doubled the skill values. They kept the same gimmick language. They did not do anything to the finishes, so it's the same finishes as the single. They have added the tag team text to the cards. You can run tag team cards like double axe handle, double body bender, things like that, double death drop. Those are now playable here. They did change the name here too. It's no longer just Mila Mai. It's Mila Mai and the Queen of Cupcakes. So similar to what they did with D2, D2 became D2 and the Ringleader. Sierra Nevada became Sierra Nevada and Sherpa. Aerial Lipstick became Aerial Lipstick and Scruffy. Mila Mai has become Mila Mai and the Queen of Cupcakes. There's going to be a Queen of Cupcakes competitor set coming out. I believe what Steve said when he announced this was the idea here was to give the new competitor some help with finishes through the Queen of Cupcakes single competitor set. I didn't mention this before, the Mad One also received the tag team text. The Mad One snapped. Did receive the black tag team language on the new competitor. Those were the two that were made tornado tags, and of course I already talked about the one single, the Mad One. The remaining competitors pretty much all kept the same gimmicks. There was just an errata to change them slightly. So let's go through these. The first group pretty much had the same change made to all of their gimmicks. This is the group of the Gold Standard, Sage the Wiccan Witch, the Ikuzo version, the new Alien Invader, X-Royce, Scarlet Graves, the Devil's Advocate Dan Williams, Danny Limelight, Smiley, and 4-Leaf Flynn. And this change was to limit their gimmicks to only being able to be used 3 times per match. So for the Gold Standard, who'd already been hit once by 2020 Vision, he already lost part of his original singles gimmick. The new singles competitor after the 2020 Vision update has had another limit placed on his gimmick. Before, when he rolled Technique, he could add a card from his discard pile to his hand for turn rolls. roll technique for turn rolls. Now he can only do that 3 times per match. He can do it at will. He can do it when he chooses to, but he can only make that choice 3 times. Same thing with Sage the Wicked Witch. When she rolled power, she could put a card from her discard pile on top of her deck. Now she can only do that 3 times per match. Alien Invader, when he rolled agility, he could put a card from his discard pile on top of his deck. Now he can only do that 3 times per match instead of whenever he wanted to. X-Royce. I talked about X-Royce's gimmick before. When he loses the turn roll by 3 or more, so his opponent rolls a 10, he rolls a 6. That's a difference of 3 or more. Before, X-Royce could look at the top 3 cards of his deck, add 1 to hand, bury 1, flip the other. He could do that whenever that happened. Now he can only do it 3 times per match, when he chooses to. Scarlet Graves. When she rolled power, she could shuffle 2 cards from her discard pile into her deck and draw 1. Now that can only be done 3 times per match. The Devil's Advocate Dan Williams, when he and his opponent would bump, the opponent draws a card, and the Devil's Advocate gets +1 to his turn roll, meaning he would win instead of bumping. Before, he could do that every time. Now he can only do it 3 times per match. He gets to choose when, but he can only make that choice 3 times per match. Danny Limelight, when he rolled agility for his turn roll, he could bury a card in the discard pile, shuffle his hand into his deck, and then draw 6 cards. Before, he could do that whenever he wanted to. When he rolled that agility, now he only gets to make that choice 3 times per match. Smiley. There are 2 versions of Smiley, a flipped version and a non-flip version. The non-flip version has the same gimmick that the flip version has once it's flipped. So we're talking about the gimmick on the flipped side of the flip version and the gimmick on the non-flip version. The gimmick was when you rolled agility for your turn roll, you could search your deck or discard pile for a card with flying or top rope in the name, and then put that card on top of your deck. Now you can only do that 3 times a match. Again, your choice when you want to do it, but you can only do it 3 times per match. The last one with this 3-time limit is a partial limit. So 4-Leaf Flynn before, when 4-Leaf Flynn rolled agility for his turn roll, he could flip 2 cards or add a card from his discard pile to his hand. Now, when he rolls agility for his turn roll, and his agility is his printed 5, he can flip 2 cards without limit. There's no limit on how many times he can choose to flip 2 cards. But there is a limit on how many times he can add a card from his discard pile to his hand. He can only add that 3 times per match. That's actually an interesting change because it forces the 4-Leaf Flynn player to, if he does not want to use one of his 3 at the moment, he must flip. He's required to essentially flip whenever he rolls agility, or he can use one of his 3. That actually could be quite a detriment. If you're at the end of the game, you're at the pass bury phase, you've already used up your 3, you pass your finish, you roll your agility, you have to flip it. You can't opt to pick something else up, so you have to lose what you flipped. I had not considered that, but that is actually something that could be a concern with 4-Leaf Flynn. So it's only a partial limit there, which I'm assuming means that whenever you're not going to use the 3, you have to elect to flip. 9 of the competitors that were changed in this way, to go from unlimited to only 3 times a match. That's the biggest group. I've already talked about the 2 competitors that we made tornadoes, and the one that was split from a single to a single end tornado. This brings us to the last 7 competitors affected by the 2020 vision changes. The first three are three that have similar gimmicks. The Mayor of Slamtown, Johnny Supershow, Theo the Greek Neo, and Gideon Guts. Each of these had a gimmick that said, once during your turn, when you hit a card with a particular keyword in the name, you may play an additional card this turn or draw 2 cards. For the Mayor of Slamtown, the keyword was Slam. For Theo the Greek Neo, it was Lock. For Gideon Guts, it was Punch. The change that's been made here is to the drawing portion only. Instead of choosing to draw 2 cards, you can now only choose to draw 1. So you hit a card with Slam in the name for the Mayor of Slamtown, you can play an additional card, or you can draw a card. That's only, again, during your turn, so it does not work on stops. You couldn't stop a card with, say, Follow-Away Slam for Johnny Supershow, and then draw a card off of it, or play an additional card. Only cards played during your turn work for the gimmick. I don't think this is a big change. I don't think this is going to really reduce the power. I still think these gimmicks are very good. I still think Theo the Greek Neo is the best of them, just because he has more cards with Lock in the name in the game than Slam and then Punch. But I don't think this is going to affect these 3 competitors too much. The next change was to another set of 3 competitors that had similar gimmicks. John Press 1P, Johnny Gargano, and Ember Wolf. I'll use John Press 1P's gimmick. His gimmick was your strike cards have the added text, flip 2 cards, add 1 grapple from your discard pile to your hand. Your Schoolboy and Backslide have blank text. This was changed to during your turn. You can't use this on stops anymore. Before, if you played Dropkick to stop a finished grapple, you would then flip 2 cards and add a grapple from your discard pile to your hand. Now it only works on cards that you play during your turn. Since there's usually 5 stop cards you would run for the strikes, there's only 10 strikes in a deck. This means your gimmick will go effectively from working on all 10 of your strike cards to only about 5, maybe 6. Still good, just not as good as it was before. For Johnny Gargano, his was when you hit a grapple, his was grapple cards have the added text. You flip and then add a submission. And there was no other text about Schoolboy or Backslide. That was exclusive to John Press 1P. His has been changed to during your turn. Ember Wolf had the same gimmick, but it was the submissions had the added text, flip 2 cards, then add 1 strike from discard. That has been changed to during your turn. So they've all had that same change, just they're not as strong as they used to be. You just don't get that bonus on stop cards that you're playing defensively. The final change was to Funtime Bob. Funtime Bob's old gimmick was when you roll your technique or grapple, your next turn roll is +1. Now it is when you roll your technique or grapple for your turn roll, your next turn roll is +1. So you do not get your gimmick on your finish roll. You do not get your gimmick on your breakout rolls. Only turn rolls. I don't think this is a big change. It is a change, but I don't think this will affect the strength of Funtime Bob too much. His gimmick's still good. His finishes are still good. I don't think we'll see Funtime Bob drop off a bunch because of this change. That is where we are with the 2020 vision for 2023. I am working on trying to get Steve Resk, and he's open to it, he mentioned this on Talkingverse, to come on and do a more in-depth dive as to why they made these changes this year to these competitors. So look for that to happen. We're still working out the details. Look for that to happen at some point. I'll announce it when it happens. Steve also made a statement which I thought was interesting. He said that for him, anytime you want to run a singles competitor in Tornado Tag, and I'm assuming Trio as well, I don't think he said Trio, he definitely said Tornado Tag, he is fine with doubling the skills on the competitor card and running that. So if you wanted to run, say, Snake Pit, you could run Snake Pit as a tornado itself. You just double the skills. The gimmick values do not change. The values on the finish cards do not change. Only the skills double. So I think that's very interesting that he would allow that. I don't know if that's going to be just in events he runs, convention events. Again, people running their own private events. They are free to choose to run things however they want. But Steve said that about those. He also said that because for right now, and we don't know when new competitor cards will be made for these 2023, 2020 Vision changes, you are welcome to play the competitor cards as they are with the errata. So if I wanted to play Fun Time Bob, I can play him in events, but that's with the understanding that I'm playing him with the new gimmick. Even though the version I would have only has the old gimmick printed on it, because no new version has come out yet. For some competitors, like Johnny Gargano, there are no plans to reprint him at all because of the contract he's currently under with WWE. He can't be made in Supershow the Game. Will that change someday? Possibly. But for right now, with no new competitors, replacement competitors coming out anytime soon, if you want to play one of these competitors, you play what you have, and then you play with the understanding that you won't use the gimmick as printed. You'll use the errata that was put out, and those changes are live as of right now. The only exception is if you drafted one of these competitors in Faction Wars and you're using them in Faction Wars, for the duration of Faction Wars, you will play them using the old gimmick. And then presumably when Faction Wars 5 happens, we'll be using the current versions of the gimmicks. One question that did come up with basically any competitor that's been errated, and I don't know the answer to this, I may pose this to Steve when I have the show with him. Can you use a competitor that's been errated if a new version that's been printed has come out? So for example, if I wanted to use Aerial Lipstick, I have the original Aerial Lipstick, or I have the Aerial Lipstick from the SRG Universe Faction Pack. It has the old Aerial Lipstick gimmick on it. Can I play that and just say, hey, okay, I'm using the errated gimmick, the previous 2020 version gimmick instead? I don't know. We'll have to see. I would say yes if I was running an event, but I don't have clarification on that. Because they did eventually reproduce Aerial Lipstick competitor with the updated gimmick. And eventually, for most of these, they'll do that as well. The question will be, once the printed versions come out, can you no longer use the old versions with the understanding there's an errata, or can you? We'll find out. That is the news on 2020 Vision. Next big story. The competitors in the 2023 Create a Competitor competition have been announced. There are 18 total. Let me go through who all of the competitors are. If you want to check these competitors out yourself, there's a pinned post on the SRG Super Show discussion group on Facebook with all 18 sketches of these competitors. So the sketches have come out. They are partially finished. Per the post, there's going to be some inking done, but we have the sketches, the rough sketches, for all 18 competitors. Here are the competitors in the contest. The Tartan Terror, JAC, Matty Barr, The Trickster, The Survivalist, Evil Dr. Carafa, Rocky Romano, Private Cuddles, Dark Prince, Captain Kiddo, Jorgito International Cool, The Foreman, Rowdy Ron, New York Phenom, Heinz Duncan, The Phil Birch, Lycan, and Math Guy. Looking at this field, there are definitely some people in this contest that have been in past years. Heinz Duncan, Jorgito International Cool, JAC, Private Cuddles. There are two competitors of note I want to point out because they're kind of interesting. The first has been discussed quite a bit. Lycan is one of the competitors in the CCC. For those of you who may be familiar with Lycan, Lycan is a competitor that is part of the Halloween. It was the Halloween at Christmas. It's now going to be the Halloween at like Martin Luther King Day deck/promo pack. That pack scheduled to come out January 20th. That is, I believe, a Friday. So watch for that because those will go on sale and there's always a limited number of everything. So if you want to get that, make sure January 20th, Halloween deck/promo pack going on sale. But Lycan is coming out in that pack, which those cards would have been commissioned before Lycan would have entered the CCC. So very interesting to see somebody who's coming out as a competitor also in the CCC before the CCC even launches. That is a first. We'll see if that affects Lycan's ability to go far in the contest, but that's going on in the CCC. Also, the other thing is this. One of the competitors in the CCC is Rowdy Ron. Rowdy Ron recently announced his retirement from the game. From my understanding, he will still continue to fulfill his obligations in Faction Wars, but once those obligations have been met, he is done. Now that could change. Everything's always subject to change in this game. But for right now, one of the 18 competitors in the 2023 CCC is retired. So will he even compete in the CCC? Will he drop? Will people still vote for him? And will he maybe go on into multiple rounds even though he's retired from the game? We'll have to see. But those are two things of note from the CCC. As of right now, we don't know when the CCC is going to launch. There's been no date for when the first match will happen. We don't know the format for the first match or the first round. My suspicion, and I could be wrong, triple threats to go to a top 6, and then 2 wild cards to make it a top 8. Again, could be wrong. I could see that happen. Again, total speculation on my part, no evidence to back that up. As always, I am the steward for JAC in this contest. I got to the finals last year as the steward. I'm hoping to get there again. I'll ask you to vote for JAC, the alternate universe hip-hop version of the general manager, John Calais. That's all I have for you about the 2023 Create a Competitor competition. Since I mentioned Faction Wars 4, brief news on that. Phase 1 currently ongoing. About a week left in Phase 1. I will report on results on Phase 1 when I have them. I don't expect Phase 1 results to be out for about 2 weeks. Let me rephrase that slightly. I don't think I'll have them in time for next week's show, so it'll be 2 weeks from this show when I expect to be able to report on Faction Wars 4 Phase 1. Rising Stars Tournament. The deck lists for that tournament, from what I understand, are due January 19th, and then January 20th, the first matchups will be announced and play will begin. I have no details beyond that. Speaking of Rising Stars, last I checked, the Rising Stars coupon code on supershowthegame.com is still active. If you're going to make a purchase on the website, use Rising Stars for 10% off. Every time you do that, they will add cards to the prize pool in the Rising Stars tournament. Captain Con news. It has been confirmed that Captain Connie, that competitor set, and the Scallywager, I believe it's a Scallywager entrance card, are going to be con exclusive. They will not be on the website. If you want to get one, you'll either have to go to Captain Con or get someone at Captain Con to buy one for you. They are not available on the website. You might be able to get one in a payoff pack or mystery box, but the best way to get one, buy it, get someone there to buy it for you. I do not like these. I don't understand why, as a company, you would not want to sell cards to your customer base. I always think it's a mistake in this game to have cards that are extremely limited print run, especially competitors and competitor sets, because one of the great things about this game is that there is not a pay-to-win perception. You can win with anything. If extremely rare competitor sets start winning, so if you want to get one of the good competitors, you're going to have to pay a high price because they were extremely limited release. That can transform the perception of this from an anything to win to a pay to win game. I think that's bad. That's why I don't like the extreme exclusivity of competitors and cards. I don't think you want this game to be perceived as you have to buy the really expensive stuff to have a chance to compete. Captain Connie looks like she's going to be a good competitor. Would she be good enough to where she just starts winning everything? Don't know. I wouldn't even want to risk it. Now, I understand Supershow has come out and said, SRG Universe has come out and said, we're doing this because we're having the award show at Captain Con. It's what we had to do to get the space. My counter argument to that would be this. Captain Con is 6 weeks before Grand Gathering, which is an event you would rather have your player base go to. If your player base could only go to either Captain Con or the Grand Gathering, you want them at the Grand Gathering. So, A, making them choose Captain Con is not what you want. But B, if you're going to have the award show, wait 6 weeks, have it at the Grand Gathering where you're going to have a bigger audience, where more players are going to be there. Part of an award show is that the winners get to come up when they win and make speeches. Where are you going to be more likely to have winners? Captain Con or the Grand Gathering? The Grand Gathering just makes much more sense to be the host of the award show. I know you've done it in the past at Captain Con, but I think you've also done it in the past at another location. I want to say you did it in the past 1 year at PAX Unplugged. I could be wrong. But the Grand Gathering makes much more sense as the location of the SRG Awards. And because they are so close, I don't know why you would do it at Captain Con rather than the Grand Gathering. Those are my thoughts on the whole Captain Con, SRG Awards, Captain Connie, Con exclusive things. I don't like it. If you want to get your hands on Captain Connie and you're not able to go, I would encourage you to try to find someone who is going to go and see if they can pick up a competitor set and an entrance card for you. I also hope they don't do what they did at PAX Unplugged and stealth release the Michael Mosley sets. They made the originals available online. They did not make the next wave. I don't know if they're going to make the third wave available online. But I hope they don't sneak that in at Captain Con 2 that nobody knows about. Because I know people who are collecting them that missed that second wave because they didn't even know they were coming out at PAX Unplugged. Let's talk about featured matches from this past week. Again, little peek behind the curtain. I'm recording this portion before Sunday Night Fights, I will tack the Sunday Night Fights results onto the end of this program. 2 featured championship matches this week, both Wednesday night after Talk of the Universe. The first, the Deep Six Championship on the line. Zach Atchley, playing as Haltane the Paladin, takes on Yasmin, playing as Amazing Red. This was a main event match that went all the way to crowd meter 5. At one point at crowd meter 3, it looked like Yasmin was going to take it over Zach Atchley, but Zach was able to use Haltane's gimmick to break out of the finish, and so it continues going. And at crowd meter 5, the winner, still champion, Yasmin. Congratulations to Yasmin for retaining the Deep Six Championship. This was quite a long match. The next match, the final match Wednesday night, the Tornado Tag Team Championship on the line. The challenger, John Schnurr, playing as the Masters of Mystery, taking on champion Alec Ventresca, playing as El Super Sons. This match doesn't go nearly as long, only to crowd meter 0. The winner, still champion, Alec Ventresca. So both champions retain Wednesday night. Congratulations to Alec Ventresca. Congratulations to Yasmin for your victories. Online tournaments from this past week. There were 3. We will start Monday night. Monday night, we have Monday Night Consigliere Fights, hosted by Brian Wait For It Schmidt. This night, it was a Tornado Tag Team event. There were 15 players, 3 groups, 5 players per group. Each player played the other 4 in their group. Top 2 per group advance into the top cut. So we cut to a top 6. The top 4 in this event end up being in 4th place, playing as Kitty Corn, Prince Butters. In 3rd place, playing as the duo Decimal System, Ken Fouché. The finalists were Everett Stevens as the Goodnight Express and Practicite as Two Dudes with Batitude, with the winner being Practicite as Two Dudes with Batitude. Congratulations to Practicite for winning Monday night. Thursday night, Chibi is still off. Chibi has had a new addition to the family of Chibis, so he will be currently off for a while. Congratulations to him on that. In the meantime, the consigliere to the SRG boss, Brian Wait For It Schmidt, is hosting Thursday night. This week he had 28 players, 7 groups, 4 per group. Each play the other 3 in the group. Top 2 from each group advance into the top cut. There are 4 rounds in the top cut. In the opening round, all of the matches are Psycho Circus matches. In the quarterfinal round, all of the matches are Ring of Fire. In the semifinal round, all of the matches are tables matches. And the finals match and 3rd place match are lumberjack matches. Your top 4 are, in 4th place, playing as Danhausen, the player of the era, John Polverino. In 3rd place, playing as Najamai, Craig Brett. The finalists are Drew Madsen as Titan of the Northeast, and the Grump Danny Thunder, a.k.a. Chili Willy, a.k.a. etc., playing as J-Train. The winner of the Thursday night event, Danny Thunder as J-Train. Congratulations to Danny Thunder for winning the Thursday night event. Friday, the Italian Bombata, who is currently the general manager of the Trios division, hosts a Trios event. There are 30 players in the event, 6 groups, 5 players per group. Each player plays the other 4 in the group. Top 2 per group advance into the top cut. From what I'm seeing here, there were 4 rounds in the top cut. I could be wrong there. No stipulations. The top 4 in this event end up being, in the 3rd place match, we have Chris Pate as the New Wool Order versus Zach Ashley as Proving Ground, with the winner taking third place, Zach Ashley. The finalists were Lucky Cat Nico as Newman's Henchman versus Chugonomics as the Warlords of the Sea, with the winner, Chugonomics, playing as his own competitor, Warlords of the Sea, featuring him, the Dread Pirate tech support, and Lone Bear from Lone Bear and Co. As a result of winning this trio shindig put on by the Italian Bombata, it has been announced that Chugonomics will compete for the LFF Trios Championship at the Grand Gathering. The current Trios champion is Bobby Ohio. I don't know at this time if Bobby Ohio will have a defense between now and then. If he does, it's possible Chugonomics will face somebody else. If not, Chugonomics will be challenging Bobby Ohio for the Trios Championship at the Grand Gathering. I think that might be the first announced championship match, contender at least, but that's the first championship match announced for the Grand Gathering. Now, there will be a Trios Championship defense, and the challenger will be Chugonomics playing as Warlords of the Sea. This will bring us to Sunday Night Fights. There were 3 matches on this week's episode of Sunday Night Fights. The first match was a defense of the LFF Underworld Championship. The champion coming in tonight, representing the Crime Wave, was the GOAT Brock Smith. The challenger, representing the higher class, Mysterious. No stipulation here, standard singles match. Brock Smith, the champion, with the original El Super Hombre. Mysterious, the challenger, with Mastermind. About a 10 to 15 minute match. It goes up to crowd meter 1. The winner, new champion, Mysterious. This means that the higher class holds the top 2 singles belts in the game. Big Match Pete as the LFF World Heavyweight Champion, and Mysterious as the LFF Underworld Champion. Again, congratulations to her. The next match of the night is a triad match using the sketchy backyard ring stipulation. This stipulation is so complicated I could not begin to explain it to you. The big thing, though, is if the crowd meter reaches 7, all participants lose. The ring collapses. Big back and forth match. A lot of twists, a lot of turns. It's the Foreman playing as Shaggy Shark versus the Dark Prince playing as Nightmare King to Split playing as Split. And the match does go the distance. It goes to crowd meter 7. So the ring collapses and everyone loses. Really long match to go all the way to crowd meter 7. The crowd all night long wanted to see the ring collapse, and they got their wish. The ring collapsed. That brings us to the final match of the night, a membership ring challenge. Zach Ashley, playing as the Phoenix Evie Fresh, takes on the SRG BOSS in a ladder match. Zach Ashley playing as the Phoenix Evie Fresh, Steve Resk playing as Terror Skull. Terror Skull is a nasty matchup for the Phoenix Evie Fresh. Terror Skull's gimmick is when the opponent rolls technique for their turn roll, Terror Skull's player can make the opponent re-roll. Technique is the Phoenix's 10. So effectively, the Phoenix could not roll 10 the entire night. The only way it could happen is if he rolled it back to back, which I believe happened one time. And I think it ended up being either a bump. I don't recall if any entrance or something else was used for someone to take the win. but from what I remember, it only happened once, and it was inconsequential. It didn't affect the match at all. That competitor, coupled with the membership ring, increasing Steve's printed 5 skill to an 8, was just devastating. A huge hurdle for Zach actually to overcome, meaning that this was going to be an uphill battle for Zach all night long. The hurdle Zach had to overcome is, in a 2 out of 3 fall ladder match, he had to win 2 of the falls. If he did, he would receive a membership ring card. This ended up being a relatively short match, and I can tell you, it went the distance. It went all 3 falls. The first fall went to crowd meter 1. The winner of that fall was Zach Atchley. So Zach Atchley comes out of the gate with a win, only needs one more win to obtain the membership ring. The second fall ends up going to the SRG BOSS at crowd meter 1. So 1 apiece, both scoring the fall at crowd meter 1. It goes 1 more fall, 1 more ladder match, and in the third match at crowd meter 0, the winner is the SRG BOSS. The hurdle just too big to overcome. Zach actually did not get the membership ring. I hate reporting when people don't make that challenge, aren't successful in that challenge. But I have to here because it is the main event of Sunday Night Fights. While Sunday Night Fights was going on, 2 things were announced. First, the Mad Custodian, after the Sketchy Backyard Ring match, announces he will be doing a future free event. Details to follow. I'll give you those details when I have them. After Sunday Night Fights, Brian Waitford Schmidt announced that on Monday Night Consigliere Fights, the theme of the night will be 6-stop. All of the competitors will be playing in 6-stop matches, meaning that their decks cannot contain more than 6 stop cards. That's the maximum. In addition, in this event, all of the matches in the top cut will be using the main event crowd meter. Those are the details for Monday night's event. Speaking of future events, the next major in-person play event is going to be Rumble at the Rumble 5 at Highlander Games in Boonton, New Jersey. This will be taking place January 28th. That is 2 Saturdays from now as I'm recording this. The entry fee for the event is $30. It is scheduled to start at 11 a.m. That's Eastern Time because it is taking place again in Boonton, New Jersey. Swiss rounds into a top cut, number of rounds based on attendance. There are the following stipulations possible in the top cut: steel cage, Liger's Den, Ring of Fire, lumberjack, steel chain, Psycho Circus, tables, and Beast Unchained. Booked competitors are Original Snake Pits, Funtime Bob, The Devil's Advocate Dan Williams, X-Royce, Scarlet Graves, Flyboy, the new version of Alien Invader, Press 1P, anything eliminated by 2020 Vision, past and the current year, the original general manager John Clace, and Grimm. Now, this may be subject to change with the newest 2020 Vision announcements. We will have to wait and see. But as it stands, that is the booked list. As of right now, you cannot play any of those competitors in the main Create a Competitor tournament. That's what the Rumble at the Rumble event is. There may be other events that day. They may be watching the Royal Rumble later that day. That's the next live event. After that, Captain Con, February 3rd through 5th in Warwick, Rhode Island. That is all the information I have for you about future events, and that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Outlaw Mudcast. I would like to thank all of you for listening, and good day.